Murder rates are rising, but so too are the suicide rates. In fact, have suicide rates have always been higher than murder rates. Murder rates, the rate of murder, that's a sore issue and an alarming issue, but also is suicide. How do we deal with the issue of suicide stemming from depression and other issues? How do we deal with that? I want to get into that a little bit because it may very well mean that we have to rediscover the purpose driven life or the goal oriented life developed from rediscovering passions within a life that is about people. A life that is ultimately what you make it and make of it. So we can't let life escape us. But how do we do that? That's what we're going to be talking about today on the Neoliberal Round podcast, and share some data and some news surrounding suicide and my own experience with suicide and how I was able to overcome. This is the Neoliberal Round podcast. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie. Murder rates are rising sharply, but so too are suicide rates. Life is no longer precious, and ending it is becoming too easy. Yet, life is about people and how we relate within it. Nevertheless, life is what you make it. So we cannot allow it to escape us. I have had to deal with issues of depression and suicide myself, but was able to overcome and is now empowered to always rise above depression, leading to thoughts of suicide. What has helped? And this is the answer. Here is the answer. The connection with the ultimate and rediscovering a life of passion and purpose. John Maxwell, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Life, said it best. There are two questions we need to ask ourselves to unveil the purpose of our lives. I will share that later in the episode. But essentially, it is living a life of purpose that is best described as the goal-oriented life. When one discovers one's purpose through one's passions, understanding the bigger picture of life, which is about people and how we relate, then we will spend our time working on passions that ultimately aid human life. Whether we realize our goals and passions is one thing, and must not be seen as failures, but part of the totality of life. Where we fail, someone will pick up. Moreover, the realization of anything must always be seen as a work in progress, as Caroline Dwek points out that this is the power of the yet. This is the Neoliberal Round podcast, and that's what's coming up on this episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast. The podcast is entitled today, Living the Purpose-Driven Life as a Solution to Suicide and Depression. Living the Purpose-Driven Life as a Solution to Suicide and Depression. We have, by the way, we have two poll. We have one. We have a poll for this that's attached to this for this episode. What the question is: what is the leading cause of death in the U.S. today? What is the leading cause of death? One, A, is it A, murder, or B, suicide? And we have a general question that you can participate in as well by going on the community page. The question is: how do you deal with depression, thoughts of depression, and suicide? You can participate on the Spotify platform community page, or you can participate via Twitter, Ronaldo McKenzie, RENALDO MCKENZIE. You can also you may, and we will also have this poll going on our LinkedIn page, Reverend Ronaldo McKenzie. This is the Neil Brown Podcast. Murder is rising in America. Gun violence, mass shooting. America is becoming more violent than it has ever been. But I don't want to talk about the violence being done to others by the external. I want to talk about the violence that is being done by the internal. Because some time ago I was doing a podcast, or preparing for a podcast and preparing for an article and to teach a class, and I was looking at some data as it relates to gun violence. But what was alarming while looking at the data was that suicide was also as high. Was also high. There's a sick. In fact, what was alarming was that the rates of suicide, when I checked the data a couple months ago, the rates of suicide was much higher than that of the rates of murder. Okay, of murder or gun violence or murder with a gun or whatever the case might be. In fact, let me check what the result. Let me see. Let me tell you where we are now in terms of murder rates, in terms of suicide rates. When suicide rates in terms of the data and what we have. Suicide data according to the CDC in 2020, an estimated 12.2 million American adults seriously thought about suicide. 3.2 million planned a suicide attempt, and 1.2 million people attempted suicide. 1.2 million people attempted suicide. That's according to the CDC. And I'm looking at their 2020. And just so you know, it's beyond that. Suicide rates increased 30% between 2000 and 2018, declined in 2019 and 2020. And they said that suicide is a leading cause of death in the United States. The leading cause of death, not COVID, not cancer, not murder, suicide, with 45,979 deaths in 2020 alone. This is about one death every 11 minutes. One death every 11 minutes. And this was a report in 2020. Okay. But what about suicide rate as of in 2022? As of today? Suicide rate as of 20. Let's look at what they are saying in 2022. The suicide rates. And I'm trying to find suicide rates by country, world population. In the United States is this, according to the another data I'm looking at. It says web suicide in the United States is a major national public health issue. I'm trying to find the report that shows, and I did a story about this, that shows murder rates in the U.S. versus suicide rates, murder rates versus suicide, 2022 USA. Let's look at that. I'm trying to find that suicide increases in 2021 after 2 years of decline. Here we go. Suicide rate versus the homicide rate. suicide rate increased to pre-pandemic levels. Here we go. Now, suicide rates increased after 2 years. I'm looking at USA Today. USA Today. Let's close this here. And this is a story by Nada Asinine, published 1:41 p.m. on February 9th, 2023. Suicide rates increased and disparities widened in 2021, returning to pre-pandemic rates after 2 years of decline. That's according to a federal analysis. The Centers for Disease Control, CDC, found the rate of suicide among American Indian and Alaska Native people increased from 26% from 2018, followed by Black and Hispanic people who saw 19.2% and then 6.8% increases respectively. The data raises concerns over access to care and pandemic struggles, CDC, so on and so forth. But that's according to the CDC. Suicide rates are on the rise. Okay, and even today, we're hearing of more suicide. Now, the point, why am I raising the issue of suicide? I said to you in an article yesterday looking at the shooting, the mass shooting, and I said that the issue is multifaceted. It's not just the gun, it has to be multifaceted. We have to look at HR and customer service. The last 2 mass shootings was as a result of HR and customer service issues or unresolved issues. And one podcast I talk about, what about the Mennonite Church? In terms of the Mennonite Church and many institutions used to have conflict resolution as part of the curriculum. And yesterday, the governor of Kentucky, Governor Beshear, talks about the issue of love. And I've been talking about developing the human conscience. And the fact that we, as a society, we cannot there's no marriage or integration between secularism and inspiration. We are so secular, there is no room for inspiration. And the inspiration that was supposed to help cultivate the human conscience so that we respect the other and value the other is disintegrating. But the point, this is a very important issue. Another issue that we must bring to the forefront is this. One of the ways of dealing with suicide, how do we deal with this suicide? And I say to you, I have been at a point in my life where I wanted to commit suicide. And I've known of several people. And I've worked as a counselor, and I've worked as a pastor. I've thought about suicide before, and I've dealt with serious issues in my life where I've come to that point. In fact, I have been in a situation where cops came to my house because of a report of suicide, and I'm telling you that. And I've come to a place in my life where there is no room for, but I have become so purpose-driven, so goal-oriented in my life today that the problems of last year and year before will not affect me in the way that it did. So I'm sharing with you a personal testimony and how it may help you to deal with your own issues, your own depression. You might be having feelings of, you might feel to commit suicide or to take your life. And I'm saying, when we live, it's not just about money. If we make life about money, then yes, it becomes the problem. I am more purpose-driven and we are goal-oriented and purpose-driven in our lives, we are able to deal with the issues in life better. We are able to deal with issues in our lives. And today I'm telling you, as I work on developing the Neoliberal Corporation, as I do my podcasting and develop my academia and my writing and my research, yes, when we talk about the purpose-driven life, what are we talking about? And one of the best persons you want to check out is John Maxwell, who has written several books on purpose and leadership. And I was about 19 or I was 19 or 20 when I was introduced to John Maxwell's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, and also Tim Elmore's book, How to Be a People's Person. Those books, I don't know if those readings and find value in people's lives today, because there are other things that interest people. But this book by John Maxwell, The Purpose-Driven Life, and Tim Elmore, How to Be a People's Person, will really help to rescue humanity. John Maxwell believes there are two questions we need to ask ourselves to unveil the purpose of our lives. One, what am I passionate about? What am I? And I talked about that, and I will talk, and I reference this as I talk about my own struggles, my own issues with depression and so on. What am I passionate about? And by discovering and rediscovering and working on discovering my passion and working to develop my passion, that has been a very important foundation, a very important factor in my life that has helped me. The second thing is, what are my gifts? What are your passion? What are your gifts? The answers to both of these questions, according to John Maxwell, are directional arrows to your life's purpose. And he says that your passions and your gifts are what give us energy. That is what I'm finding every day. That is what gives me drive, gives me energy. That is what helps me to overcome the obstacles and the challenges. Okay? And there was a saying that says, change your perspective and you change your life. The things that we have to face in this life, the perspectives that we have will affect how we come out of it. It is not money that gives me energy. Of course, I said I want to be a millionaire so that I can, because I said some time ago when I was younger, when I was about 17, I said I want to be contented. I don't want to be wealthy. But later on, I've updated that. Of course, I want to be a millionaire so that I can empower other people. I can't help others if I am not in a position. But I am not. The goal is not to make money. The goal is to understand what my passion is and to work and what my gifts are in relation to that passion. Develop those gifting. And of course, Tim Elmore's book about people's persons, being a people person, or the networking issue. By the way, I was listening to was it ABC or NBC had a story about a gentleman that talked about his life and how he became successful, and he talked about investment and the ability to read the room. First of all, you have to get in the room, and based on your race and your color and who you are, if you don't have much connection, you won't be able to get into the room. Just because you cannot get into the room to talk with the investors doesn't mean life has ended. Doesn't mean your passion stopped and your dream stopped. You keep working and developing. Yes? What are your passions and what are your gifts? Now, Tim Elmore says that the purpose-driven life is more than a book. He wrote that book. It's a roadmap for your spiritual journey. Combing thoughtful verses from scripture with timely stories and perspectives from our own life. By the way, there's a book by Richard Foster called Celebration of Disciplines, which I read when I was about 17, which I found, was I 17 or no, I think I was 21. I was at a seminary at the time. Celebration of Discipline, a very powerful book. And the book talks about celebration of disciplines, about spiritual formation. Okay, it's about one's development, personal growth and development. And one of the spiritual formation disciplines is solitude, silence. And Socrates talks about the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living. But there's also Caroline Dwek, I think, that talks about the power of the yet. So while we examine our lives, we have to be careful that we don't do it in such a way that leave us more depressed, yes, and demean our lives more. You have to think in realistic terms, yes. We have to think in realistic terms. And I said to people and to families, find out what's going on in your own families, with your relatives, your neighborhood, your friends, and invest in their efforts. Many of these people people can't find funding, and now they are mopping up liquidity. It's not easy to get funds to promote. If get rid of this talk or everybody doing their own thing. That's not how the most successful families do it. The most successful families in society, they're not about doing their own thing. In order to build generational wealth and so on, it's not about doing your own thing. Find out what people are doing in your own family. Stop investing money in crypto and Wall Street and other people's stuff. Invest in there are people in your family that has lucrative gifts and that is ahead of the game. And so instead of starting something fresh, find out how you can combine your efforts. We're talking about passion. So John Maxwell says, what am I passionate about? And what are my gifts? Of course, there's some people, Tim Elmore says in his book, How to Be a People Person, talked about I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about what is the ultimate of all things, that we live together as one. That we live together as one within all of our individuality. Recognizing the individual and appreciating the individual and moving away from ethnocentrism, Occidentalism, and Orientalism. We want to delve some more into the stats, but I don't want this podcast to be demoralizing, okay? But I want you to understand the importance of discovering your purpose, the importance of discovering your passion and looking at your gifts and how those gifts and those skills and those talents that you have will help to develop your passion, and then working on developing. And of course, in the beginning, it won't be as smooth. In the beginning, it's probably going to be crappy. You're going to create a website and it's going to look, at first, it's a work in progress. It's a trial and error. It may not look good, but you constantly work at it. If you look at the first website that I made for the neoliberal, it was a work in progress. And then, of course, I did a YouTube video some time ago, and I shared it with my family members, and one of my family members said, "Oh, you need to improve in terms of the aesthetics. It's like it's the aesthetics. It looks like some home video, Fruity Loop." One young man commented on my YouTube channel saying that looked like on the Castro v Trump series. It looked like some Fruit Loop thing, and I said, "Put your money." That could have discouraged me, but I said to him, "Put your money where your mouth is. If you want me to develop more aesthetics, if you want what I'm putting out to be more, if you want to be cosmetic, if you want it to be more beautiful, develop the cosmetics, the aesthetics of it, then invest in it. But you can't let that deter you. You're constantly working on it and improving yourself. You may not get there, but that provides fuel for the fire, fuel for one's life." We'll be right back after this. As I develop and I said to I was speaking with my neighbor just now, and we're talking about how the China and Brazil and many countries are ditching the currency for the US dollar. But one of the things that came out of the discussions with my neighbor was the fact that the Bible said that the root of all evil is money. Money is the root of all evil. Yes? It is the beginning of all evil. Money is the beginning. The day when human beings developed currency was the death of humanity. Okay? And then we tied currency and money to work. And then we developed a system to value people's work so that some work attracts greater value, and that value is tied to currency, to money. Money, which seems to be now, it's becoming, and work now is becoming obsolete. So in order to get, society was simple when we had the barter system. But as we develop money and sophistication, and as we talk about one of the issues in society, as we develop sophistication, as we develop production, as output be, uh, a rapid as output began to expand, people began to produce more, and so on and so forth. You find, and people became greedier and greedier to the point where they enslave a whole race of people. Society was not, and now as we think about artificial intelligence and work, but at the same time, China is here trying to sabotage America's dominance in the world by attack in a multifaceted way, weakening the currency. But currency is the problem right now. Currency is going to become a problem because people are going, and now the Feds are mopping up liquidity. But I am saying to you, if we live our lives just thinking about money, and if we live our lives without goals and purpose, then it's easy for us to not appreciate life and the life that we live, the life that we have. So I'm going to encourage you, find a passion in your life. Find passion. Find something that you appreciate. Develop a goal that you work towards that comes from something that you can do, a skill that you have. Or you can develop a skill. I said to you, I didn't know anything about digital technology. And I've developed that skill. That goes hand in hand with some of the other things I'm doing. So I implore you today, develop a passion. And some people have no room for Jesus, no room for inspiration. I sometimes carry people in my car, and I expose them to classical music and to jazz, because I said, you're always, we are always bombarded with this loudness, with things that with language that devalue the other, with language that hoards our brain, and with this booming music that promotes this kind of divisiveness. So you come in my car, you're gonna hear classical music, you're gonna hear inspiration. Yes. I say to you, find a passion and work towards that. Because that passion will drown out the difficulties and the challenges you are having with life. And life is not easy, but life is about people and how people relate. I said to my brother yesterday, my twin brother texted me, Ricardo, saying that he was, having some issues in his own life, and and people are going through a lot today. People are going through a lot, and I sent him an email, and just so you know, I made an announcement about we are working on the new book, and my publisher is KD, sent me an email showing me I did some changes on the cover as well. And it's just exciting. It's an exciting time for the Neil world. It's an exciting time in my life. It's an exciting time. That and let me tell you, it's exciting, but life is not easy. I'm going through a lot. Okay, the challenges are mounting as I try to navigate life and develop my grassroots company and my books and so on and so forth. It's not easy. Funding is not easy to come by. Okay, but I don't let that deter me. Okay, you always, one of the things that when you develop people are afraid to develop your own business, and I said what has dogged many peoples is they don't have generational wealth, and they don't have generational wealth because everybody's doing things on their own. When we're able to come together and work together in families, okay, find out who in your family is doing something great and has product and has something that you can work with and you can invest in. You're putting your $10,000 in crypto, putting your $10,000 in other people, putting your time and effort watching other people's stuff, buying other people's stuff. When you have people in your own family that have products that's doing great things, okay, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can work with them, help them, and develop a passion. Develop a passion. And that will help us to overcome. And let us work together as a people. I am very concerned about this suicide rate. And many people are turning to opioids for help, turning to other things for the wrong answer. Okay? as we move away from the spirit. We talk about, I was have a conversation with somebody the other day about capitalism. I said capitalism was never about hard work. Capitalism was a facade of hard work. Only some people had to work, and other people took reap the benefits. Okay, but yet it's still there was this notion of, according to Max Weber, the spirit of capitalism. Yes, there was still this hard work and savings and this Protestant ethic that defined the society of yesteryears. Okay, although many people took advantage of scriptures and used it to enslave people and used it to trick people, but there was still something positive. Okay, but I say to us, as we, neo-capitalism, and I talk about neo-capitalism and the death of nations. Neo-capitalism is the fact, this pharisaicism, this bureaucracy, this where we don't value the other, we only value ourselves, this narcissism. People, the barter exchange, and the kind of society, simple society that we have, where people were able to do what they were best at, develop their passion, and then based on the needs that people have, then they will exchange. That's what society used to be. We become so complex in our sophistication. That is our due. But today, I encourage you today, find a passion and work towards that. Work towards that passion, that purpose-driven life, that develop goals and live a goal-oriented life. One full of passion, skill, and be realistic. And when you have, and as you work towards your goal and develop challenges and problems, okay, find, develop ways at how you can navigate that. Explore ways, do your research to go around that and see how you can, that is exciting. Some time ago I had a discussion with a family member, and I was encouraging my family member to come, live out your path. What is it that you love to do? He said he was becoming tired of doing what he was doing, and he just wasn't finding much joy anymore, and so on. I'm like, what is it that you want to do? But people are afraid to take risks and to live out their passion, because of course society forces you to work hard, and when you work, you don't have no time to do anything else. Some people have to make sacrifices. Say, for example, do Uber on the side, yes, or do other side gigs while they try to develop their passions, and then you sell that passion and exchange it. But I tell you, in order for us to overcome this depression and this suicidal rate, there are many other issues, but one of the ways we can deal with it and develop passion and have a greater appreciation in life is to, again, live that purpose-driven life. John Maxwell talks about the purpose-driven life in his book, The Purpose-Driven Life. And I read almost all of John Maxwell's book when I was in college and at the Jamaica Theological Seminary. So I actually, when I was actually trying to find the story I did, is entitled "Murder Rates Are Rising Sharply. Is Gun Reform the Answer?" Murder rates are rising sharply. Is gun reform the answer? And it's available in the Neoliberal Corporation's Moral Magazine, at Ronaldo at theneoliberal.com. And I actually referenced the data in that article, which I got from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, that shows gun murders and suicides between 1968 and 1978. And then it shows from 1979 to 2020 and beyond that. And if you from 1968 to 2020 and beyond, suicide rate has always outstripped, or has always been higher. Gun murders and suicide rates have always been higher than that of murders. Um, I am looking at the data right now uh, that I obtained. And you can go to the neoliberal.com website and you can check it out. It says, and there's a note, and actually, the source of the data is the Center for Disease Control. It shows gun murders and suicide between 1968 and 1978 are classified by the CDC as involving firearms and explosives. Those between 1979 and 2020 include firearms only. And beyond, and as of 2020, I think suicide rate per 100,000 the population was at 7, as against murder was at 6.2, um, um, 6.2 percent, and that's quite interesting. So the data I'm looking at here is showing U.S. gun suicide and gun murder rates, which seem to have increased in recent years. And according to the article that I'm referencing here, it says in 1996 the rate murder rate fell again by fell, and again by 1999 the gun-related murder rate fell to an all-time low of about 3.9% per 100% of the population, which carried over into 1997 to 2013 with no major rise or fall until 2016 to now, where murder rates are rising and are climbing back up to their peak levels. And I also, but according to the article, the 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 information that they provided included a record number of gun murders as well as a near record number of gun suicide. A near record number in 1976 recorded the highest suicide rates, 7.7% per 100,000 people. And then by 2020, we're at 7.0. And now, and 2022, we are actually up to that up to that record level, of 7.7. While at the same time, also, we are finding increases in murders. So that's the stats. And you can check, you can go to the neoliberal.com to get the full story on that article. But it is quite interesting what is going on as it relates to violence done by the external or by the internal. How do we resolve these issues outside of the gun related issues? Suicide is one. As I said to you, one of the ways we deal with that is to develop goals, develop a purpose driven life, develop the human conscience. That's probably facilitated by the inspiration. Yes? So I hope that we are inspired today, and we can pursue our passion and rise above the challenges of living. As I said, life is about people. Life is about people and how people relate. It is you, it is I who make life what it is. It is you, it is I who make sense of life. Okay? And so, as I wrap up this podcast, again, I said life is about people and how people relate in that life. Moreover, what is life? Life is what you make it and make of it. There is no life without people. You are just as vital as a person, and it is we who have the power. Don't let it escape you or from you. There are times when we get lonely, and times when we get weak, and think there's no one around to call upon. My twin brother wrote that song, and I wrote that song some time ago. And we and the cataclysmic end was some people call upon Jesus, some people call upon Allah, some people call up on um, uh, Hare Krishna, um, Rastafari. Some people call on the internal or some other inspiration. Whatever you call on that, and remind yourself you'll have hope. But more so, I pray that you will also call on your loved ones. But remember, when you pray, don't pray sleeping or sitting. When you dream, don't dream sleeping. But believe and have faith. But you may have to also stay away from the naysayers. What good? This is the Neoliberal Realm podcast. Thank you for listening. And I decided to do a quick podcast just now because, as I by the way, there's another shooting in Atlanta. The person, a bystander got hit. I understand that he, no one died. He's recuperating, and we're happy for that. But no, they have not found the person. They do not know who is responsible for the shooting, and they're still investigating. Now on Friday we did not have a Caribbean Thought class on Friday. We will have a Caribbean Thought class on Friday, and it promises to be powerful and exciting. I'll talk to you about that, and it will be available on the podcast. We will also do a podcast before Friday. I'm gonna do one with my twin brother Ricardo, talking about medical malpractice, and we have had situations with our mom who have, if it weren't for the quick action of some family members and some of the connections we have and so on and so forth, I don't know if my mom would have been here. But there is this issue of the thymus, and many people are misdiagnosing people with lung cancer or with thymoma and so on, because the thymus, for some people, the thymus is enlarged and it's supposed to drop off at a certain age, but the thymus grows and covered my mom's heart, and they thought it was cancer or something, and they cut the heart and lied and said, hey, see, the cancer had grown when it was the lungs. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about many other issues as it relates to people who are vaccinated, who received chemotherapy or some kind of treatment and are breaking out with lesions on their body, and in Jamaica only Dupixent can deal with and which is an expensive drug, only available in the US. Nobody's talking about that. People who are vaccinated, who have some kind of chemotherapy or some other treatment, antiretroviral treatment or whatever the case might be, I understand that many of those people are being affected by lesions, or they're seeing lesions, and my mom is one of those persons. And we took her to the hospital. So that's the podcast we're gonna have coming up. My twin brother will join the show sometime this weekend. We're gonna be talking about a personal story as it relates to medical malpractice, and how you can, and what you need to do as an individual, as an informed individual. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Neoliberal Realm podcast. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie. You can visit us at theneoliberal.com or ronaldocmckenzie.com. We're available on several different platforms. There's a show that we did on Castro v. Trump Part 2. It's not available on Spotify. Several of the shows are not available on Spotify. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm understanding that there's a problem with the audio and the video, because Spotify also shows video and the audio if the podcast is uploaded via video. It's never an issue, but for some reason it's an issue. So if you are listening on Spotify, there might be 3 or 4 episodes, very amazing episodes, especially the Castro v. Trump series, part 1 and 2. It's not available you will not find it on the Neoliberal Round via Spotify. All the other episodes are there, but the Castro v. Trump and 1 and 2 episodes we did on the ban on TikTok and so on and so forth, it's not available on Spotify. You'll have to go to Apple, iHeart, Audible, Amazon, Podvine, PA Adverb, Radio Public, Google Podcast, whatever, in order to get those episodes. Okay, but all the other episodes will be on Spotify. We're still working out the kinks to find out what's going on, why those episodes are not available. But we're working that out. Now, just so you know, you can support us and we need your support so that we can make this program and the programming better, and we can provide much more opportunities for other people for the show. And not only that, we plan to take the show to the next level. So please, you can help us, donate to us at anchor.fm/theneoliberal/support. We have a new URL, but as I said to you, if you go to anchor.fm/theneoliberal/support, you will still get us. But I think the actual URL for the new URL is podcasters.spotify.com/pod/theneoliberal. Again, podcasters.spotify.com/pod/theneoliberal/support is the way you can support us. Thank you so much. The neoliberal round is from the neoliberal corporation. We're all about serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges by making popular what was the monopoly. What good?